just be careful because you're probably about to see something you won't be able to unsee. We were trying to relocate a problem crocodile. I've caught large crocodiles literally with like the string on my pants.
To this day, it's the craziest shoot I've ever been on. Peter, what's the one animal that I've always said to you, you can't mess with?
It's the honey badger.
I would much rather go up against crocodiles all day and catch crocodiles all day than go up against a honey badger.
Mambas won't mess with them. Lions won't mess with them. Nothing will with a honey badger. Except for the lunatic on the other end of the phone who goes, I want to go and catch a honey badger with my hands. And I was like, click.
Once we're fucking in there, he goes, this is not your domain anymore. I go, it's his.
Wild times.
Andrew can't hear the music.
Woo! Andrew can't hear the music. That's okay. There is music. What's up, buddy? How are you, Ucles?
George, it's been a long time. How long has it been since I've seen you? About 7 years.
No, it kind of been 7
Wait.
years. Has it
Well,
really?
Lucky guy.
2017. Yeah, exactly. 2017, wasn't it?
Oh,
Or was
I
it-
don't know. I would have guessed 2 years. That's what I was gonna say off the top of my head.
Wait, so
That's-
Forrest, have you seen Ucles since Face the Beast?
Yeah, he came to a premiere party. We had a premiere party for Extinct or Alive season 2, I think it was, and he came up season 1, crashed on the couch, hung out.
Yep.
I think that was the last time when he was cruising through the states. So
I don't know him. Why don't you introduce him to
yes,
me?
why don't I introduce everybody? Because this is a regular pod. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Wild Times, the greatest show on television / your computer. This is the Wild Times, the best comedy and wildlife podcast in the world. Fact, I am your host, Forrest Galante, the broologist. Joining me, as always, the effervescent and lovely, the blue lighting really popping on his eyes with the fat tire beer boxes in the background, Mr. Peter, the brofessor. What's up, bro?
I really like how you rolled your tongue there. It makes me feel warm, the subcockles of my heart. Yeah, had a few IPAs when we recorded last night, and I think you can tell. But
Yeah, you're
happy to
Yeah,
be
you
here.
can.
You need some
You
of
sound
that.
like James Earl Jones, son.
You need some magic mind, dude, to get back on the
I
board.
seriously
You're a
do. I
mess.
have one in
Yeah.
the fridge. I might do it.
You're a mess right now.
All right,
And
all right, I'm gonna
as
pop it up,
always,
pop it up.
our other co-host, before I get to our very special guest, the producer himself, Papa P, the pen popper. How are you, Pat?
Ready to go. Let's do it.
This is the
Well-
most chipper I've ever seen you in the morning, Patrick. Ever.
You know what it is? It's the anxiety bubbling over from the flight that I have coming up in about 2.5
That's what
hours.
it is.
So yeah, I'm
All right.
quivering.
And very exciting for everybody. A good friend of mine, of Patrick's, of the pod, of everybody in Australia, the lunatic himself, Mr. Andrew Ucles. What's up, Ukes?
It's absolutely amazing to be here, and I'm still suffering the jet lag. You've done that trip before from Australia back to the US, and it gets it every single time. And it doesn't matter how you transition your sleep, you're still going to be lagged for a couple of days. So
It might be the worst flight sleep transition in the world between Sydney and
I reckon.
California. I don't think there's anything worse. I don't know why. I don't know what it is, but you just never get on track.
Well, you're on
No.
like opposite ends of the world. Like it's Christmas there when it's summer here. I mean, all
Yeah, that's how it
you're in a
works.
different world.
it's literally down under. 100%.
No, it lasts like 2 weeks also.
A lot of
Mhm.
people don't know this, but July 25th in California is Christmas Day in Australia.
That's absolutely
Accord-
correct.
According to Peter, yeah.
That's absolutely correct.
Ukes, dude, we got a lot to chat about, a lot to catch up on. We were just shooting the shit. It's been 6 or 7 years since I last saw you in person. Obviously, you and I and Patrick did our Face the Beast show, and then History Channel just poked us in the bum on that one, and that never went anywhere. And
What was that? I don't know about that. Tell me a little bit about the Face the Beast. Just what was the idea?
Sure, Pat, jump in. Let's talk about it.
Well, the idea was that Andrew, as a wildlife lunatic expert, someone was very, very good at getting super close to dangerous animals already at that point,
Gotcha.
out on expeditions and try and sort of shed light on these mysteries that have happened in history. So the first episode was the Ramree Island massacre, where supposedly, hundreds, if not close to 1,000 Japanese soldiers were eaten by crocs. Andrew went through the bowels of Ramree Island, saved a kid's life along the way.
Mhm.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
It just kind of got networked to where there was just a lot of pieces, and
Sure.
they aired it on a Saturday and never
was a
gave
night-
it a
it
real
was a
fair
disaster.
shake.
Sounds sweet
Disaster.
though.
Dude, that
Yeah.
shoot in Myanmar with Ucles and I was, to this day, it's the craziest shoot I've ever been on. Just
I,
like,
I reckon the one liner that came out of that was, Andrew, get the fuck out of the net now.
yeah.
Who said that?
No, just like, just
Me,
give me 5
screaming
more
kill.
seconds, 5 more seconds. So essentially what we were trying to do is we were trying to relocate a problem crocodile. And, it was anywhere between, a 3 and 4 meter crocodile, which had been hanging around in this vicinity. And so we went about setting up a little bit of like a net trap sort of design. But as we were setting up this net trap, we had the impeding tide which was coming in. So it was literally like a race against the clock as I was trying to set this like trigger bait mechanism going on. And so we had the entire crew on one side, and then I was kind of up inside this net just trying to set this trigger. And the water was slowly increasing. And I remember there was a soundo that was there by the name of Trevor Robinson.
Yeah.
And he was genuinely in fear.
Well,
you could hear it in his
Let
voice.
me explain something. Hold on one second. Let me explain something. Like 7 hours before this, we had taken a pig leg and pinned it to the tree exactly where Andrew was standing. And White Nose, this deadly crocodile, who turned out to try and kill a kid like 2 days later, by the way, was caught on trail camera right there. So we were in the spot where we knew there was a man-eating crocodile lurking us, a giant, monstrous crocodile that we watched on trail camera rip a pig leg to shreds. And Andrew was just like, he was like a toddler. He was just like splashing in the water. Like, no, he wasn't like that. But he wasn't like that at all. He was very focused. But he was in the water in an area. There was definitely a very mean crocodile. So we were all getting pretty nervous.
He also has no amygdala. Is that true, Andrew?
He's way worse than me.
Worse than you?
Oh, well,
damn.
I don't know. Like, I've really thought about it over the years, and I think I've lived out there in the bush, in the Australian bush, and so when you're really connected in that type of space, and you're having that constant exposure, you do develop a sense of obviously a heightened sense of confidence, and you got to be really careful. I feel like in this industry, because confidence and complacency, there's a very thin line. And you often see quite literally in this industry, so many people get themselves into positions where people do get attacked and people do get hurt because they just don't know how to draw that line. And so I guess, the last 10 years of my life, I guess it's been like juggling knives at times.
Sure.
But look, I think, retrospectively, with crocodiles as well. Look, I've had quite a bit of experience with crocodiles in close quarters. And, when you're an individual that's had 1,000 hours in the field when dealing with these animals, as opposed to someone that might be not as confident in this environment, of course people are going to have a sense of tension about them, and I think that was probably what was going on.
Kyle, pull up some of this imagery from this shoot, because we've talked about it a couple times, but I don't think anyone's probably seen it since it aired on a Saturday.
Absolutely incredible shoot.
What was this atmosphere like in Ram Reef?
Pause that right there. Pause that right there, Kyle. Look at this. That's fine right there. That's fine. Look at this. I want Andrew to answer that. I don't want to interrupt him. I just want to point out, this is a real human skull that Brian fingered in the mud outside of the fort of Ramree. And the network goes, "Oh, we don't want that." Remember this, Patrick? They're like, "Oh, we don't want a fake skull." And we're like, "Why would there be a fake skull?" And they're like, "Oh, well, you didn't find a human skull." We're like, "Of course we found a human skull. We were at the site of a massacre." And meanwhile, Andrew and Brian was shook by this. Remember this, Ukes? He was like, was rattled by holding this human skull. But anyway, I think Andrew should answer it. But Peter, that's a real human skull we're holding there.
Yeah, that's wild, dude. Yeah. So what did they end up saying? They were like, "All right, leave it in."
I don't remember. I don't think they ever believed us that it was real.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just one of many props that we had that day.
Right.
In the backpack.
Well, I just think, when you're dealing with that type of remoteness, and you're dealing with that kind of impoverished, atmosphere that we were in, it's no real shock to be finding body parts, particularly in a place like that. To be honest, I was actually surprised we didn't find more skulls along the way. We could have literally had quite a collection. Look, this is bringing back some memories now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's awesome. Run us through it.
We missed him, didn't we? We did. We missed him.
We missed the croc. Yeah, here from this net, and then you caught him with the noose. But Yeah, this trap, and then, that lovely idiot producer that we had, who I won't name, who was like, "You need to come in because the lightning storm," which we just
Pause
finished
it
the
right
trap.
there. So what's going on there, my recollection is that Andrew's comfortable around crocs. I don't know if I don't want to speak for you, but you've had thousands of hours dealing with crocodilians. The co-host Brian didn't and had
No,
some fear.
never even seen one, I don't
And
think.
so in this moment, Andrew looked behind him and started screaming and told Brian there was a croc coming up on them, just for a laugh.
Right.
Yeah, you saw proper fear in his eyes, quite literally. It was,
Yeah, he didn't like
man,
that
it was
joke.
actually, Forrest, that was your idea, wasn't it? You're
It
like,
was my idea, yeah.
yeah,
Don't
we really
I was
want to get some energy into this. And there you go.
That's
I was really
great.
hoping you weren't gonna tell people that was my idea. I was just gonna sit quietly here and let that fly. But yeah, I was like, I whispered in Uke's ear, I was like, "Pretend there's a croc right by you guys." And, yeah, he fucked with Brian, and then there was just, like, big hysterics from everybody but Brian after that.
So this is the last thing we'll say about Myanmar, and then move on to some of your other stuff that you've been working on in the last 7 years. But in the moment where you guys got the call that someone had been attacked, I've heard Forrest's POV on this, but
Yeah.
what was your experience there, Andrew?
Guys, it's time for the ultimate face-off. The Beard Bowl is here. As
Yes.
the two best teams square off to see who the champion of facial fuzz is.
Okay.
That's right.
It's definitely me.
Our friends at Manscaped are prepping everything you need for game day. Manscaped's Beard Hedger Pro Kit is the MVP of facial grooming.
Yes.
And it's good for your balls. Fact.
Offering precision trimming, water-resistant technology, and enough styling options to outplay any opponent. And guess what?
What?
You can join the winning team along with the 10 million men who already trust Manscaped with our special offer. Go to manscaped.com and use code WILDTIMES, all one word, for 20% off and free shipping. Craft your winning look with Manscaped.
Yes, sir. I'm doing it right now.
I've already done it.
Get 20% off and free shipping with our code WILDTIMES, all one word, at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com with our code WILDTIMES. Gear up for the real halftime show where your beard takes center stage.
Thank
Dude, you might have a career as an announcer.
New year, new me. Did you guys know that?
Definitely. Yes.
Yeah.
I can see it.
I'm doing
Yep.
it just like everybody else. I'm on a health kick. I've been trying to eat healthy. I've been trying to work out more, and I've been doing that with Factor meals. Have you guys tried your Factors yet?
Yes. Delicious.
It's restaurant
good.
quality. It doesn't make any sense. It's healthy, it's delicious, it's high protein. I feel like each meal is a cheat meal, even though when I look at the macros, it's the opposite of that. Pretty incredible.
Yeah. It's also so much less expensive than getting takeout or even buying groceries at the store.
Dude, no prep, no mess. Literally throw it in the microwave. You end up with a delicious, healthy restaurant quality meal. It's cheap. It's unbelievable. Like I'm blown away. I'm gonna keep doing it until I have a six pack. So maybe for the rest of my life. And if you want to try yours, head to factormeals.com/wild50 and use code wild50 to get 50% off your first box and 2 free wellness shots per box while subscription is active. That's code WILD50 at factormeals.com/wild50 to get 50% off your first box and 2 free wellness shots per box while subscription is active.
I'm going to do it.
Already done.
I remember this like it was yesterday, and I guess it's
What
one
are
of
we
those
looking
situations-
at here? Real quick. For those
Okay,
that
so
are
we're
audio.
inside the village or the hut at that point in time, and essentially we're just trying to amend the injuries that is got. But you know what? What I think what was interesting is coming into that situation. I think we all kind of looked at each other and thought it was staged, didn't we?
It looks
we
nasty.
thought there was acting going on at the time because we could hear like a lot of drama and a lot of commotion and crocodile, and all this kind of stuff. And we thought, is this village just having it on? Like this can't be a coincidence that we're here trying to find this problem crocodile, and let alone someone's just been attacked within 15 minutes. So
Yeah,
I think naturally, I was actually quite skeptical of the entire situation, and even when it was unfolding, it was. I think what it done there is it really made it relative. This is actually happening. sort of thing. We are here for this reason, and here we have is a young boy in front of us, which is just being mauled by a crocodile. And I'll be honest, I think it was the medic that was there at the time, because I remember I started running up towards the to the hut. He said, as soon as I got off the boat, he said to me, he goes, "Just be careful because you're probably about to see something you won't be able to unsee."
Wow.
Because we didn't know what we're walking into.
Yeah.
We
We
didn't.
just
And I
knew.
think-
So we got a call. I've explained this before on the pod. We were in the research station, which was, I don't know, 2 kilometers from the village. And we got a call and screaming that there was something, that someone had been attacked. And that's all we knew. So we jumped in our little speedboat and went basically across the river to the village. And as we approached the village, it was just chaos. Like, people were running around. There was screaming. There was a mother wailing, like, "My son is dead. My son is dead," because the boy was bleeding out and dying. And then we
Yeah.
hopped off the boat, and Andrew, myself, Brian, and Eddie, the medic, basically rushed into the hut. And the boy, as you see in that frame, was lying there,
Mhm.
lacerated, with arm broken in 20 something places. And, he wasn't bleeding out as in he was going to die from bleeding, but in a village like that in the middle of a swamp in Myanmar, he was going to die. It was going to go
Sure.
septic and he was going to die. And so
Mhm.
we cleaned and dressed. There is no medical care. There is no nothing. Like, that's the end. So the mother was literally already wailing, like, "My son is dead." Like, she had already written him off for dead.
It's
And
wild.
because we happened to be there, we came in, and I'll let Andrew explain it more, but we triaged him and sent him out on a speedboat. His arm was amputated, but he lived. So we saved his
Damn.
life. Yeah.
Wow. Dude, that's wild. And they aired this on a Saturday. What a bunch of pricks. It's like you found a human skull, you saved some lives, and they're like, let's
Oh,
pop
go
it
to
on
the end.
Saturday
You want to see
morning.
something insane? Ukes decided to make himself bait for the crocodile, and as the crocodile slowly approached, got a noose around it.
Yes,
Hal,
I would
pull
love to
pull
see
that
love
back
this.
up. Yeah, and go to this ending part here. Before this, went to see him catch it. Yeah, somewhere there's a baby, but no, the other way, Kyle.
Yeah,
Other way,
this is
other way.
something that Mitch cut together, so I don't know if he has like
Nope. Too far. Just look for where the guy's making himself human bait. Kyle, you're a fucking nitwit. All right, I'll show you. Go to 326. Nope, sorry. Hold on, that's not it either.
Oh boy,
No,
what a
Forrest.
mess.
Here it is, 350, 349, 350.
All right, 350.
There, watch this. Okay, so now we're in the
Human
boat. Andrew, I guess we don't see it much. Yeah, but this
Mm.
is, Andrew's in the water. It might be cut together in a weird order.
It
Andrew's,
is.
yeah, okay, they don't even have a shot of it in there. Andrew's in the water, splashing, waiting for this croc who's tried to kill a kid 4 days prior. And the
Right.
croc approaches, and he gets a noose around it, and then this is the chaos. And then this is us
Jesus.
freeing it later.
What was I noticed
Look
you
at this. Crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. Just rolling around there, the death spiral.
Yeah, he came lunging out, and Ukes is just in a wetsuit, and it's like 1,000 degrees out, and yeah, that's
So-
the crew getting charged by the croc. It was lunacy.
So what's up with this? Why was he so violent? Was it just starving, or was it like a man eater?
Look, I think I've got a bit of an interesting take on crocodiles. I think once you're in control of a crocodile, or you've got a lasso over them, they're the easiest animals to deal with. They're so dogmatic in their routine. They've really got a set kind of pattern, and not just that. Because of the way that their bodies are designed with the lactic acid system, they just die in the ass real fast. I don't know. I don't see crocodiles. I know there's such a big thing about crocodiles and these large man eaters and all that kind of stuff. To be honest, and I've done it before, I've caught large crocodiles literally with like the string on my pants. But I'm being serious, literally.
That's
and
wild.
I guess it's almost like a good funnel into like the honey badger, because I would much rather go up against crocodiles all day and catch crocodiles all day than go up against a honey badger.
Oh, no
Any day of the
question.
week.
No
Any day of the
question.
week. You're dealing with two completely different animals. And I know people would say automatically, yes, but a honey badger can't kill you and a crocodile can. Well, it's all relative to the environment that you're in. Obviously, if you're swimming around in water, you're going to be putting yourself in a situation that you can't get out of. But in terms of being able to handle, restrain, and actually get in control of, I dare say crocodiles are probably one of the most easiest animals.
So let's talk about that for a second. So anyway, Peter, that was where we all first got to know Ucles. That was many years ago. After that, we went to the Caribbean and did a shark dive thing. And Andrew tried to get himself eaten by a bull shark, which was
That
very
almost
funny.
happened.
That really, really, really almost happened.
At what point in your guys' relationship was the circle jerk?
We're still working on it. We do it
Oh,
quite
okay.
regularly.
Can I
Yeah.
join? I want to join.
Yeah, we do digital circle jerks because he's in
Oh,
Australia.
excellent.
Yeah, it's really
Excellent.
nice. Yeah.
Let's talk about this honey
You
badger.
just reach off screen and then Andrew puts his hand in like this, and then it's like
I can always do that 100%.
yeah, it's really nice. No, yeah, ask Patrick. That's the only time he's ever seen me like completely flip out on set when I was like, Andrew, get out of the water because Andrew nearly got eaten by a shark.
Well, that's when you're feeling the adrenaline. You know what I
dude.
mean? Like for me,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not an adrenaline junkie. I'm not. You know what I mean? But there is something about a sense of not having control that really just sparks me. You know what I mean? I love it. I love the thrill of it.
Okay.
Wait,
I
so
do
what?
believe that is an adrenaline junkie, but if you say so.
You know what I love doing in Australia, and it seems to be the one thing that I really love doing is I love going to catch the water buffaloes with lassos. So I go on foot and I run them down and I catch them with lassos, and I feel that's the one thing that I don't know. It's such a rush. You'll have to try it.
rodeo.
When you come to Australia, Forrest, you'll have to try it. It is.
I've never done it.
Rush.
Kyle, hold on. Kyle, pull this up. Go on YouTube and find Ucles catching water buffalo with a rope. This is a real thing. But anyway,
I did one a couple of years back with Adam with Green Tree, but
cool.
When I actually, you know what actually happened after I'd done the filming with Face the Beast, I did a walk across Arnhem Land.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that actually, and your
That
horse
was hell,
died and
man.
all of that. Yeah, so hold on. Let's stay a little bit linear here because it's interesting. So that was when we met Ucles. Look at this fucking loon. He's just roping water buffalo.
Look from it. Jesus,
I do really
Christ.
want to do this. It looks insane.
Looks ludicrous.
It is ludicrous, especially Andrew doing it because
just no protection, bare skin shirt with
no shoes,
big ass horns. That's crazy, man.
At the same look, water buffaloes are dangerous, and they're an incredibly intelligent animal that definitely knows their danger arc. And I've talked to guys and actually spent some time in Africa there with the Cape buffalo. I feel like the Cape buffalo behaviorally are probably a little bit different, and I think it's more to do with the fact that
no question.
Yeah, because the Cape buffalo are constantly being predated upon, so they've already got that instinct, that reaction. But yes, they are a flight animal, but their fight response happens quite fast. Whereas an Australian water buffalo, I feel like you can chase him around all day and he'll just keep on running until you really put that animal into a position where it's cornered or it has to defend itself. That's when you're going to get a different change of behavior. But the Cape buffaloes are, I think they're a bit more on the wilder side.
You couldn't do that with a Cape buffalo; it'd kill you.
No
question. I know you don't believe.
You got to do it now.
Are
the Cape buffalo
so
the ones with huge muscles?
No, you're thinking Gar.
War.
There's two things I want to talk about. So since our shoot with Andrew and History Channel, like dropping the ball on that, he's done two things that I find. He's done a lot of things that are really interesting, but two things that I find really remarkable. Peter, do you know what Arnhem Land is?
Of course not.
Of course, I just set you up for failure. Peter, Patrick, do you know what Arnhem Land is?
Only because of what Andrew did.
Okay. So Kyle, while Andrew explains Arnhem Land before we even get into his adventure and what he did that no other Western human being has ever done, pull up a map of Arnhem Land so people can see it, Kyle, on the screen. And then Andrew, explain what you did, because this is I don't know why this isn't like bigger news. Like the guy who walked the Amazon, was that Ed Stafford? Like he got a lot of info for this. This is like credit for that. This is way harder than walking the Amazon. Anyway, explain Arnhem Land.
Well, look, I had been told that it couldn't be done on a number of occasions, and I think I'll tell you the real personal part to this is there was fear in this undertaking. There was. If you've ever taken that drive from Darwin down to Catherine and you're looking amongst the frontier that surrounds you, there's one thing that you notice in that kind of landscape, and the first thing is how harsh it is, how remote it is, and essentially, if you go missing, it's perishable country.
Yeah,
like you will not last, and essentially when the rangers or the police are doing their search and rescues, we generally, cast like a net of like 72 hours upon someone. The fact that water can be incredibly hard to find, the fact that it's so hot up there in the Northern Territory as well, not to mention the amount of predators which are there too. That landscape there represented what I like to call nature's labyrinth.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you get lost, well, you just walk around for circles. Your only friends will literally be the crows. And I think that's where there was actually a lot of fear in me. And when I did embark on that trek, it was close to 800 kilometers that I walked. I did it in 42 days, which essentially I'd been given some really good advice, and it was essentially just keep listening to your body. Whenever you're hitting ground, which is relatively flat, keep moving. The thing about Arnhem Land is it's not like a stretch of desert. Arnhem Land has a number of different types of biomes and different habitat types, from like floodplains to wetlands to billabongs to high escarpment country and plateaus and all that kind of stuff. So it's an incredibly difficult landscape to try and walk across. I remember there was a couple of situations there because I'd taken a horse almost as moral support. And there's actually a quote, and I think it really talks a lot about the journey. And I guess at the end of it, the kind of conversation that I would have with people when people would ask me this question of, well, what was Arnhem Land like? It was a bit like this. So there's a quote from a novel, and sometimes it makes me emotional because I feel like it's very true. There's a quote from a novel that says, there's a boy and a horse, and they're in the forest. And the boy turns to the horse and says, I can't make my way through. Like, I'm lost. I can't make my way through. And then the horse says to the boy, can you see your next step? And then the boy says, yes. And then the horse says, well, then just take that.
Love it.
And I feel that the power of that message and the power of that quote can be relatable to a lot of people in different ways of life. And not just necessarily the extreme of what I had done, but as an example to, sometimes we find ourselves at a crossroad and we don't know which way to go in life. So sometimes you just got to go with your gut. You've got to go with your instinct. And if you can see a path forward, then move towards that. So I think inevitably the entire journey had a lot of, significance with it. And I'm not sure if I'd communicate. So I'd actually filmed this as an entire documentary that went to Netflix, and it's also went to Discovery Networks. And I guess I'm in a situation now where I've had a number of episodes which have went to network, and it's funny because they're popping up in Europe, they're popping up in South America, they're doing the rounds. They're everywhere where they're not where they should be. Like, I've been trying to get my content into the US, and it's not in the US. And I feel like, and Forrest knows how hard I've worked over the years.
Oh yeah.
And
We
the
talk
discipline and the
constantly.
near-death experiences, and I just haven't had my break.
It'll click. Maybe this will be it, Ukes. Maybe people will watch this. I'm telling you, on the Wild Times, people are going to want to see it. But let's back up for a second here. Peter, I want you to just understand this for a second. First of all, Ucles weighs about 140 pounds soaking wet at his fattest. Okay.
Okay.
Just think about that. I want you to put that picture in your head. Then he decides to walk 380 miles over the roughest country in the world.
Well,
Okay.
he said 800 kilometers, which is 500 miles.
Oh, I thought
So
it was 600 kilometers.
No, 500 miles he walked.
Okay. Sorry, Mr.
You
Basso.
just gypped him out of 120 hard fought miles. That
All
was
right.
10 days of his journey, Forrest.
I thought it was 600 kilometers. That's what the Daily Mail said. All right. 500
Liars.
miles, Peter, that he walked. That's more than
Yeah.
you've walked in your entire life
Ever.
put together. Yeah.
Oh, without
Five.
question.
500 miles that this skinny kid walked in some of the hardest landscape in the world. Kyle, pull up that picture I told you to get ready. Look at what he looked like coming out
Well,
of
I
this.
came out
Oh
like
my
Yeah,
goodness.
I came out like a skeleton.
He
And,
came out
Wow.
like a fucking skeleton. Look at his feet. Those are
Yeah.
monkey feet if I've ever seen monkey feet. And
It
the
doesn't
horse-
even look like you.
and-
I actually had to do the last 100 kilometers with no shoes on because my shoes were absolutely
Jesus.
shredded. And that was tough. Walking that escarpment country was fucking tough. I can't tell you what I went through, but I said to myself that I was going to fucking crawl out of there. I
Yeah.
was gonna,
And the horse
I was
died,
going to
right?
die there, or I was going to crawl out, and that
Didn't
was
the
it. That was my mentality.
Didn't the horse die, Andrew?
No, he lived.
Oh, I don't know why I thought the horse died on the
He
track.
did. Yeah. So when production put the entire documentary together, there were times that the horse collapsed when we were out there. Not many people
that's
know
cool.
this. Me and that animal went through hell.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, and he came out pretty emaciated at the end. We both came out, and it was interesting. People also didn't know that I took a green horse into this situation. I never put a pack saddle on him. And until we got
Wow.
out there, this was the most jittery animal. By the time we'd walked halfway, not only did I need a lead on him, he was actually helping me to round up the buffalo when I was trying to catch him. So it was an interesting
Wow.
connection that was happening between me and the horse as well. And I'm not,
Wh-
look, I'm not a horse person. I'm the most inexperienced person with a horse. I can barely ride a fucking horse. Uh, and
But
obviously,
that connection, man.
this horse couldn't be ridden. But
Yeah.
I think, in doing any kind of quest like this, you need something to work off and some kind of support. And I think in a
Mhm.
comical sense, it's okay when you're talking to that animal. What's not okay is when the animal starts talking back.
Yeah,
That's
when it's
when you got to get the fuck out of there.
full sentences. What were you eating? Like, what was your main diet for those 42 days?
Anything and everything I could get my hands on.
Because you
Like,
didn't
what were
take
some of
food,
the-
right?
Within
Did you take
within the
fruit?
legal context, I was essentially
What were
I
some
was
of the staple food sources that were? No,
feral
I'm not going to
pigs.
say abundant. Okay.
Yeah, feral pigs, plenty of feral pigs. And look, feral pigs are relatively easy to catch on foot if you know which ones to target. So I was targeting a lot of the larger sows, running them down. Water buffalo, I think I caught about 3 buffalo on that trip. So, but look, the issue not necessarily is going to be the food that you're collecting because you're dealing in such a hot and humid environment. The issue is always going to be in the preservation of your food. So yes, I
Right.
took salt.
Mhm.
But look, that was a constant thing, and because you are dealing with that environment there, you are constantly on the move hunting. And I think I really want to just draw on one fact here, and that is, I work quite closely with Indigenous people up there in the Northern Territory, and this is to do with another side, which is so I'm also in the Australian Defence Force, coming in as a survival instructor, but we work very closely with the Indigenous there. And sometimes I just say to myself, how the fuck did they survive out here for hundreds of thousands of years? Like
Yeah.
I consider myself being really good at what I do, but how the fuck did they survive at what they did is unbelievable. It really is. It's the true. It's almost like the true human when you look at that. If we look at ourselves today, I feel like we're all like domesticated dogs in a way. Like we're turned into like Labradors. But the wolves of the
For sure.
past were
Yeah, yeah,
essentially like
yeah.
the Aboriginals. They were the wolves.
No
I've
question.
watched some of those Aboriginal kids knock birds out of the skies with boomerangs and
Hmm.
just the accuracy that they've got with the spear. And it doesn't matter how much time that we spend out there in the field, they've got something which is just innate
Sure.
and
Oh yeah.
and it's from the environment. And I just think I've always just been in awe of that. And I've always tried to be that, you
Right.
know?
Yeah, Andrew, if we've talked about Forrest and I we were standing by our car eating some bananas and we saw these kids in Madagascar and I'm not kidding, they were probably 4 or 5 playing with looked like playing with a slingshot. They were plinking birds one shot, grabbing
Crazy.
food. Like we saw them get like 6 birds out of a tree
Yeah.
with 6 shots and we were like these kids are built different, man.
Yeah.
Like, these-
Straight up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Almost genetic, instinctual.
Peter,
Passed down.
did you catch I have questions about Arnhem Land. I want to know about how you slept and how that worked. But Peter, I don't know if you caught this because Andrew said it in such a nonchalant way. He ran down pigs. So Andrew used to
Oh,
be
in bare feet.
a
Yeah.
competitive triathlete, or not triathlete, marathon runner, right, Andrew?
Runner. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And marathon runner. So he runs down pigs like Native Americans used to run down deer.
It's
Except
wild, man.
he's probably the only person in the world who still does that. Not joking.
I
It's
love it.
wild.
I love it. And with the tours that I run up in the Northern Territory, I take people out, and it's about teaching them a skill set and making them competent, but showing them what's humanly possible. And yeah, there's definitely a lot of strategy to it. If you're just focusing on a random solo ball, not even a dog's going to be able to keep up with him. So you've got to be very very selective about the individual that you're targeting, and not just that. It's in the same way that a cheater might be identifying the weakest link within a group. That's
Mm.
exactly what you've got to do.
Yeah.
And I think what's happened over time, and this might just be like an internal thing, is like a lot of people see what I do and they go, this guy's crazy, or this guy's this, or this guy's that. And I think when the general public is saying that, it's okay because it's okay to look at me through those kind of eyes. I think where I've copped a bit of flack is actually within the industry, where people will go, "He's crazy," and try and discredit me. And it's just like, well, hold on one second. I actively live out. This is what I do. It's not me dealing with captive animals from zoos or whatever. Like I catch the wild animals. That's what I've done since a child. It's all I've known. It's just that's been my thing.
Ukes,
And this has
buddy,
been
I just want to say one thing, and I don't want to cut you off, but I want you to consider this. It doesn't matter what you do. If you're in the public light, you are going to be ridiculed, especially in the wildlife space. I mean, Peter and Patrick fucking get it just for doing this podcast. Like, people will
Yeah.
jump online and write negative things about them just for sitting here chatting with me about our opinions on animal stuff. I mean, it just don't let
Absolutely
it get to
true.
you, man. People are lunatics.
Yeah.
Like,
Hey,
not
Forrest.
the
Look,
good way.
I've been definitely thick-skinned about it and all that kind of stuff. But there's definitely a topic that I really want to discuss today outside of all this, and it's about the Tasmanian tiger. But we'll keep that in the yes.
That's called a tease.
That's a tease.
All right, I sent a text to the group chat last night. I was very excited.
Yeah.
Yes.
About
Cat litter. A
Cat
text
litter.
about cat litter. That's what you
Pretty
texted
litter.
about.
you guys know I love my cat Lemley. Peter
Yep.
loves his cat Forrest. You need to get some.
I might.
Pretty litter is I'm not kidding, a life-changing product for me.
Wow.
It's dude, there's no odor. There's none.
Oh
I
God.
don't know how this works. But here's the best part. You don't have to scoop the urine out. Because that's the terrible part of cleaning your cat box is the urine, and it turns to clay.
It's also the spot that makes you have to clean it all the time and refill it.
Dude, the individual crystals absorb the urine. So all you have to do is grab the poop. There's no smell. I wish I could go back in time to have this product when I had my other cats. Pretty Litter helps keep tabs on my cat's health, keeps odors down. You and your cat are going to love Pretty Litter as much as I do. Go to prettylitter.com/wild and use code WILD to save 20% on your first order. That's prettylitter.com/wild, code WILD to save 20%. prettylitter.com/wild, code WILD. Terms and conditions may apply. See site for details.
Hey guys, if you're enjoying, guys, if you like the Wild Times, check us out on Patreon. We put out 4 extra podcasts per month.
That's one commute a week that you're just going to be laughing and learning the whole time in the car. Hey, let me do something else. This is the late night content, the stuff that we can't show on YouTube because they'll kick us off YouTube.
It's the Cinemax of podcasts. Uncensored, raw dog. It's the Cinemax of podcasts. Check it out. Link right here.
Wait, Forrest, your phone's ringing, dude.
Oh,
Can you answer
excuse
it?
me. Yeah, pardon me. Sorry, guys. Hello?
Hey, is this Forrest Galante?
The one and only.
Hey, this is Billy from the new streaming service,
Oh.
Flippio.
Yeah, Flippio, of course, Billy.
Yeah.
Yeah, big fan. Big subscriber.
You're aware of you know who Andrew Ucles is? He's the guy who walked across Arnhem Land in
Of
42
course.
days.
Personal hero of mine.
Okay. So we're actually interested in buying a new series about him doing it again. But we want someone to be there for banter.
Sure.
Would you be interested in doing this with him?
Absolutely not. Not only does your network
Okay.
not exist and you have no viewership, but outside of that, I'm not nearly as tough, as rugged, as manly, or as capable as Mr. Ucles. And I think this is a wonderful suggestion. But part of Andrew's charm that the last time I did a show with him that we had to remove is the fact that him on his own doing his funny little dance moves and silly Michael Jackson shenanigans is what makes him so adorably charming and enjoyable. And, I'm kind of a curmudgeon. I'm like an old man stuck in a young man's
We've
body.
seen that.
So
Yeah.
I would,
It's
I
just
would,
not good.
it's
Odd
not
couple.
good. No, it's really quite unpleasant. So if it were me, I would recommend doing a show with Andrew and leaving me out of it.
All right,
He's much more capable and competent.
So let me ask you this: phone call aside, Forrest, what would be this? Let's say this really happens. It's Netflix this time.
Okay, well that's different.
How much would they have to pay you to attempt to do this?
So here's the thing. Ukes and I spoke a lot before this and right after he got back. It sounds like fucking hell. Like
It really does.
absolute
Yes,
fucking
clearly.
hell. But that being said, I could really use a good diet. So I'd do it. No, I'd do it. Honestly, like all jokes aside, I would do it. If Andrew came to me and was like, hey, I'd have to get paid some money. Like I'm not just up and doing this misery for nothing like that lunatic. But yeah, if there was like, hey, go and do this, you and Ucles together, get through it 40 days or whatever it was, I'd definitely go for it.
All
I
right.
wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it the Andrew way though. Andrew's too tough for me. I swear to God, I'm not just making that up. I'd have probably a crossbow or a rifle. I'd certainly have 2 pairs of shoes.
I'd have an RV.
Yeah, you
And
know,
that'd be a fantastic idea, 100%.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Great
give
Yeah,
a
we got that
little.
one too, I think.
And
Maybe a
so
horse you can ride.
I do
Yeah.
want to point something out that is important. Like all networking jokes aside, Andrew is a true survivalist. I am not. People often turn to me as like a survival expert. Survival. I'm not that person. I've never been. I said that on Naked Afraid. I've said that since the beginning. I'm not a survivalist. Yeah, I can build a shelter. I can make a fire. I think anybody with half a brain can do those things. Most of that stuff, and Andrew can attest to this, is about being dynamic and adaptive. I can do any of that stuff. That's fine. I can filter water. I can do all that. But I'm not a survivalist. Andrew is a survivalist. If you put Andrew and I out in Panama, Arnhem Land, anywhere, he is going to outsurvive me 1,000 times out of 1,000. I'm a biologist. I like to tinker with animals, not try and push myself to see how long I can survive with nothing. So,
Yeah, you're kind of a pretty boy.
Oh yeah,
this is
you
what-
have become one.
Well,
This is what
I
I've
think
heard.
I think persistence,
Let's
I
do
think
lunch.
it's that persistence and I think it's the mentality of it is what makes a good survivalist is not giving up, not quitting, and having a good sense of ingenuity. Being able to look at a problem and look outside the box.
For
And I
sure.
think that's something that kind of creative way of thinking can only really happen when you spend a lot of time out there in the bush and just being able to look things up. But I think in any kind of survival situation, have you guys seen the Snow Society on
No.
Netflix? Have you guys watched it? So you guys
I
know about
haven't.
the incident that happened in, I think it was in Uruguay. No, they were flying from Uruguay. It was a soccer team that was going to
Oh,
Chile,
no,
Yeah,
and they
it was
the
ended up
rugby team. The rugby team.
that's them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
they
yeah, yeah.
ended up crashing in the Andes,
Oh,
and they had to
wow.
survive. I think it was 72 days that they had to survive out there in the snow. And I
Wow.
just watched the film and done a little bit of the wiki read on it. Now, these guys here, they obviously they didn't have any kind of survival backing or understanding all that kind of stuff. But the way in which they were able to push their bodies to the extreme, so they actually ended up having to eat the dead.
Okay, but can
Right.
I just say one thing
Right.
about this, Andrew? The reason they were able to do that is because they were rugby players, not soccer players. If they were soccer players, they would have faked injuries. They would have been worried about their hair.
Yes.
They would have all died within 12 hours because soccer players, and if
Right.
you're listening to this, I stand by this, are pussies. Because they were rugby players, yeah, I don't give a shit. Because they were rugby players, they fucking toughed it out. So that's
Right.
important. Don't insult us by calling us
but-
soccer players.
What I want to try and say, I guess, is for the audience at home, is everyone has the innate ability to survive, and at the end of the day, you don't know you don't know how you're going to react until those circumstances have been put in front of you. You just don't.
Right.
You really don't know how you're going to react, and the fact that these guys were able to survive for that period of time. And you can imagine the mental trauma of having to eat the person next to you just to sustain yourself.
Oh my
and
God.
The moral
Wild.
implications that would have on you, both questioning your belief system or your religion and all that kind of stuff. Just imagine me turning to Pat and being like, "Hey, so Forrest has been gone the last 72 hours. I'm going to start gnawing on his thigh."
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
man.
Like
It's
literally,
crazy.
like the
Pretty meaty
context of
thigh.
thinking that you would be in and trying to even transplant that way of thought is just
Well,
you can't
and-
really
and
predict what you do even.
At the time when that became a news story around the world, back when you read your news in newspapers, people were outraged, and these guys took a lot of heat for
Oh, wow.
the fact that they ate humans, whereas and so I remember hearing about the story as a kid and just being like, but wait, the option was to die.
Right.
Like, if I'm dead, please have a feast.
I actually might request that, like regardless of the survival situation. I might.
Andrew,
just
who
request
would you
one.
rather eat, Pat or dead Forrest?
it all have to be categorized into what I would consider as junk food.
Pat would
Lot
be
of
a
sa-
meager meal.
A lot of saturated
I think
fats.
fat content. I'd be going for fat content. That's probably
So you go Forrest and start with
Take
his
it.
yeah, you
cheeks.
can go for
More
like bone
meaty.
marrow or something.
More meaty.
Um,
Good bone marrow on this boy. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I take
Unbelievable.
my vitamins. All right, I want to get into something else. Can we transition a little bit here?
Yes.
Sure.
So, Andrew, Ukes got back from Arnhem Land weighing all of 84 pounds and looking like a wet spaghetti noodle of a human being. And we started chatting. This was when did you finish Arnhem Land, Ukes? That was like 4 years ago, 3 years ago.
It was pre-COVID, yeah. So it was
Yeah.
I think 2018. I knocked it. I think, yeah.
Anyway,
About
we talked about that. A year or two went by. I get a call out of the blue, a WhatsApp from Ukes. He goes, "Chooch, got to chat with you." And I was like, "Great. Haven't talked to Ucles in a year or so. Let's get on the phone." Now, before I explain the next absolutely fucking insane thing that came out of this boy's mouth, Peter, what's the one animal that I've always said to you can't mess with? Like, there's nothing you can't fuck with it.
It's the honey badger.
The honey badger, right?
Yeah.
Have I not said that on this pod? I don't know, a
Yes.
dozen
You've
times.
said it a couple times.
Yeah, it's like an unfuckable animal. I mean, like, and I mean that. Like, it is
Yeah.
just something you can't, like, a ferret's bad enough, and that's a honey badger that's this big, right? It's like, it's unfuckable. Mambas won't mess with them. Lions won't mess with them. Leopards won't mess with them. Hyenas won't mess with them. Elephants won't mess with them. Nothing will fuck with a honey badger, except for the lunatic on the other end of the phone who goes, "Yeah, Chi-Chi, how's it, mate?" I'm doing South African now. He goes, "I want to go and catch a honey badger with my hands." And I was like, click. No, I didn't do that. But I was just like, "You're an idiot. That's not possible. What are you talking about?" And I was wrong. So that's all I'm going to say to set that up. But Ucles, what, like, talk about your thought process and that whole thing. Like, what?
Okay, so literally, I'm going to show you my phone. And can you see what's on my phone?
Sure.
It's a
Oh,
honey
wow.
badger.
That's a great honey badger
Beautiful
picture.
photo. Yeah.
Very
That-
good.
This animal means so much to me, like really. And I think there's a couple of episodes. I think it was maybe filmed on Nat Geo, and I think someone picked it up and made it into their own kind of thing, and it went viral. And it was about the honey badger doesn't give a shit.
Oh yeah,
Right.
it's huge.
And there was a footage of this, honey badgers going and consuming like puff adders and breaking into like honeybee nests and all that kind of stuff. And I guess that's where my fascination kind of arose from. And look, as a child, I had ferrets as pets, and I'd do rabbit hunting and all that kind of stuff. So I already knew a little bit about the family of the mussel-day family. So like the weasels, the stoats, the mongooses, the badgers, and so forth. And I've always just been so fascinated about those animals. I really have. And I think the honey badger represented a couple of things. It represented an animal that I had been told was a bit of like a unicorn in Africa. Like people which had been guides their entire life had been like, well, I did see one.
Yeah, that's me.
4 years ago.
Yep.
Or, and so
I've seen two. I grew up in like the heart of it, which is where Andrew went to in Zimbabwe. And in my entire life, I've seen two.
Yep.
And I grew up on safari in the bush in the highest density place for honey badgers in the world. And I've seen them twice in my life.
Wow.
Okay.
So,
Elusive.
there he is.
Look at these things.
Yes. And so the other name for the honey badger is what they call the ratel. And it's because the noise that they make is which essentially sounds like a rattle.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I feel like that's actually been like scarred into my brain, that noise, because I heard it on several occasions when I quested for them. But look, I made some big fundamental mistakes with that. And I just want to say it was a sponsor, K-Bar, so K-Bar Knives. I actually got in contact with one of the guys there, Joe, and just said, hey, look, I've always wanted to do this. Can you please send me on this mission? Can you please sponsor me? And he was just like, I think he talked to John, which is the CEO, and they're just like, yeah, let's send this idiot out there.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Quite early. So they funded my trip, which was, amazing. And so that's where on Sid, it actually took me 4 months to actually try and track one down. And
Wow.
Hold on. I don't think we got to the core of this, which is the main thing, which is, Peter, Andrew wasn't just trying to find a honey badger or photograph one or tranquilize one and move it. He wanted to hand catch one.
Of course he did.
That's
Right,
bigger. That's like bigger than like
Oh my God.
oh yeah.
I got nothing to say.
Well,
it's
I mean,
fucking
we just-
insane. It's
we just saw
fucking
the-
insane.
We just saw
Okay?
the video where the honey badgers were chasing off a couple of hyenas.
African
And now we have a
hyenas.
picture of Andrew just holding the biggest honey badger I've ever seen with his bare hands.
Yeah.
That's
Anyway,
crazy.
Sorry.
All right.
Please
So
continue,
yeah, so it
Hughes. I
takes
just
you
wanted
4
set up-
months
set
to
this
find
up,
one.
yeah.
So
Before you even saw one.
the problem with trying to track down an animal like this is there's a couple of things, and I guess there was and I know you're going to be able to relate to this because you grew up in Zimbabwe, right?
Zimbabwe is a difficult place.
Oh, mate. The quote at the end of the entire trip was the hardest thing about trying to catch one of the hardest animals on earth had nothing to do with the animal
The people.
and had everything to do with the people in between.
Mhm.
Well, explain.
I warned you going into it. I told you it's very corrupt and you're going to have a lot of problems and you got to know whose pockets to grease.
Yeah.
and you're going to
So-
spend a night in jail. I warned you on all of that
The
going
Oh,
in.
caption on your photo, you mentioned extortion and bribery. What?
Oh,
what
yeah.
happened?
extortion, bribe, scammed.
Jeez.
The government, which I'd paid thousands of dollars for with the permitting and stuff, just took me around in circles and what they do, their little games and all that kind of stuff. And then
Oof.
Forrest gave me a bunch of like amazing contacts, which I ended up tracking down, and they seem to be the most like helpful people. And
Told
look,
you.
I
I was like, don't use the government.
right, yes, and oh look, what ensued was one hell of an adventure, and I think a social adventure as well. But one of the biggest issues with honey badgers is, apart from them being a highly intelligent animal, is you're dealing with a species of animal which is completely nomadic. You're dealing with a species of animal that has a huge home range. Like, I mean, their home range can be up to 25, 30 kilometers. This animal can move 20 kilometers throughout the night and be from point A to point B.
Wow.
We're talking about an animal that doesn't utilize the same retreats. That's huge. Because if you're targeting an animal that goes into the same like cavern or burrow or hole, then effectively you can set up a trap, or you can wait for it, you can dig it out. But a honey badger doesn't do that. It's using the generational retreats of multiple different animal species. So whether it be a jackal, whether it be an aardvark, or whatever it might be, that animal itself doesn't know where it's going to land. It's almost like a butterfly.
Mm.
So when you're trying to track down an animal like this, it's incredibly difficult. It doesn't matter. I had some of the best trackers, I'm sure, from Zimbabwe, from Zambia, helping me to try and track down this animal. And with every step closer that we got, was still a mile away from this animal, because there was no way of being able to predict where it was going to end up. Not to mention, there's a lot of footage of these animals moving around diurnally, like in the daytime. They are not a diurnal animal. They're a nocturnal animal. That's the other thing. That's the other
And you
problem.
can't, we've talked about this, you can't just like run around the bush at night in Africa. It's not a thing. It's
Well,
not
I
like anywhere
tried.
else in the world. I
And
know
yeah,
you tried, you lunatic. I'm saying people can't
Well,
just do that.
Because you'll get eaten?
Yeah.
Well, look, I saw leopards, I saw hippos at night time. I saw all of that as I was walking through the bush, and I saw my first badger. I saw 3 weeks into my trip, and I remember chasing and running. And then you've seen African box fawn, right? You've seen that before, the thicket. And I remember chasing it, and it went into that, and that's impermeable. You can't get through that. That's a matrix. It's a vegetation matrix. So if I was to do it again, you don't want to be picking an environment which is like a 3D environment. So what I mean by that is, you don't want to be picking somewhere where there's like a lot of hideaways and holes and thick vegetation and scrub. Is where people have had their success in catching these animals is essentially in 2D environments. So like in the Kalahari, where you can see this animal in the distance and it can't retreat anywhere, it can't go anywhere. So it literally becomes a foot race to catch these animals. And that's how it's been done in the past.
How did you catch you? So obviously you caught one at some point.
Right. So I was based out of Kruger National Park. I'm just trying to think. It's like a German kind of town there. And I went and started doing some interviews with some of the farmers. I'd been told that the best chance of me trying to catch one would be talking to one of these people, because there's often conflict that they have with like jackals and mongooses and badgers, essentially trying to get into their chickens. So I met up with a guy that was a chicken farmer, and essentially he said, look, we've been having a problem with a badger. We're going to, we'll try and help you out. We'll try and set up like a bit of a trap. So it was like a bit of like a walk-in aviary, and we set up like a chicken like carcass and a trap and a spring-loaded sort of door system. And essentially we got one inside of this like fucking aviary. Now, the interesting thing was, after almost 4 months of trying to catch one of these animals, I got a phone call that day. And I feel like there's not many things that will make my heart start racing, but it was the phone call of, hey, we have a badger, and this thing is going to be, I don't know how you're going to try and go about handling this thing, mate. He goes, really? He goes, but I'll film it. And so what ensued was, I got there, and I remember I was actually outside of this like big aviary, big walk-in room. And there's this badger, and he'd been trying to dig out throughout the night, and he was just walking, just calmly, just along the sides. And I remember I got to it, and it kind of just like glanced over its shoulder and just looked at me, and then just kept doing its thing.
Yeah, because they don't give a fuck. I mean, there's literally memes, honey badger don't give a fuck, because they don't, Kyle, pull up that meme. They don't give a fuck, because nobody's going to mess with a honey badger. Nobody, Ucles, is stupid enough to mess with a honey badger. Nobody. So they don't give a fuck. They don't run away from predators.
So he's in the room. He's in the room. The honey badger sees you, doesn't seem to care. Now what?
Right. And then I say to the guy, I said, let me go in there. I just want to just suss this animal out and just work with it. And the guy goes, mate, he goes, I'm going to be honest. He goes, once you're fucking in there, he goes, this is not your domain anymore. I go, it's his. So anyway, he opens up his door, locks me in there, and I go inside this big fucking aviary room with this fucking badger. And this is the intelligence of the animal. He knew the door I'd come in through, right? So the badger,
Right.
he's just looked over his shoulder, he's watched me come through the door, and then he's kind of just, kept doing his thing, he's digging inside. And then by the time I'd moved halfway to the room, what it done is it took a look at me, it went to the side, it went to the door, and then it stopped.
Ah.
And it turned, because what it essentially done was, it goes, well, I know that's your outlet. That's how you get out of this entire entrapment. So I'm going to put myself between you and the outlet. And that's the strategic mind of a honey badger.
Amazing.
It's
That's
like
crazy.
now, it's like now I've got you. So it turned, and then, mate, I think the footage is quite hilarious, and it's for, I think, 7 minutes of me trying to get the fuck out of the aviary with this fucking badger just after me. And I'm trying to do all things, like in that time, I'm jumping over it, I'm trying to grab it by the back leg, but you're dealing with an animal that's incredibly ambidextrous, the way in which it can move. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and its spine is like a fucking noodle. You know what I mean? It's what I've always
Yes.
said when we're talking about mustelids. Like, you can't hold them anywhere. You can't hold. They're like fucking noodle creatures with
Exactly.
ferocious
Very
teeth.
difficult.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
whilst all this was going on, the guy's like, hey, you're only going to be able to do this with a net. So he ends up giving me a fucking net. And then eventually I get this thing in the net. I get him under control. But not just that, trying to actually grab a badger, they've just got, it's not like scruffing a fox or scruffing like a feral cat or something like that, where you can actually got something to grab onto.
Right.
They've got so much loose skin.
Mm.
Right. So you've actually got to grab the loose skin and pull it up as high as you can and have as much gravity to actually get the animal off the ground. That enables you the ability to handle it, or
Yeah.
otherwise you're going to get bit.
Wow. That thing is so big.
Yes.
It's wild. And weren't you afraid it was just going to claw your face right there in that picture?
Oh, look, at that point in time, I feel like I'd already been through enough.
Sure.
And it was kind of almost like a suicidal mission at that point in time. I was just like, I just want to have this moment with the animal. And
Did you take any? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Retrospectively, they are still today my most favorite animal. It's like a spirit animal. I think they're unbelievable. It's such an unbelievable species. And I feel so sorry for the African continent for them being there.
Did you take any damage?
No, financial damage, yes.
Sure.
But in terms of like physical and emotional damage, or maybe a bit of
You
emotional
took
damage.
plenty of emotional damage. I remember you
Yes.
calling me halfway through,
Oh,
being like, I've been
angry.
in Zimbabwe for 2 months.
I've been-
Everybody's a fucking crook here. I don't know how you lived here. This place is the shittiest country on earth. And I was like, no, you're just dealing with the wrong people.
Wrong
You
people.
got to deal with the right people. Like,
Yeah.
the government will fuck you. And I'm not trying to throw you under the bus here, but you just can't do it the right way in Zimbabwe. You can't do it
You
on
can't.
paper. You can't do it. And people don't understand this. When you come from America or the Western world, you're like, check the boxes, dot the I's, cross the T's, do things the right way. And I respect that. And I understand that. You should do that in the Western world. You cannot do that in Zimbabwe. You
No.
don't understand. All that happens is you get walked like a bloody dog on a leash and write check after check after check and hand out
Yeah.
piles and piles of money.
Yeah.
And they just look at you with dollar signs in your eyes like, oh, this boy's a bottomless pit. And they'll
Yeah.
just walk you around and around in circles, getting you to pay. And that's what happened to Andrew for 2.5, 3 months. And
Yeah.
then finally connected with some of my friends and got pointed in the right direction. But it just, it was, I know what you've been through because I lived it. I lived it.
It's unbelievable. It really is. And look, I did meet some amazing people along the way. But retrospectively, and it's so true. When your example, when your template is coming from a first world country, Australia or the US, the interesting, your word is your word. You know, and the value system that we have in most places is your word is honest, it's transparent, and it's to the point. It's quite literally black and white. And the unfortunate thing is when you go to these places, you get nothing more than the African promise. You get promised everything. And this, and I think, it wasn't my first rodeo. I'd been to Africa before and I dealt with this, but I felt as though because there was a goal and I was trying to achieve something that was so hard, they just found that as a way of being able to exploit me. And at every single level, like I met up with the environmental ministers of the countries. I met up with everyone in between, and it's all part of the documentary. And I think it's interesting because I filmed the entire thing. It's sitting on a hard drive, and I haven't released anything.
Oh, really?
No, I haven't released anything.
When are you going to release it?
Well, I guess when I've got a production company that wants to
Yeah, we're
take a
talking
crack
about
at
it.
it's a network.
Gotcha.
Right? If there's any production companies listening, then so.
Hell yeah, for real.
Andrew, you teased it earlier. The audience has
Okay.
been waiting now 25 minutes. Anytime we talk about Tasmanian tiger,
They
people go
found one.
nuts.
Well,
What?
they found one.
I was like, hold
Son
on
of
a
a
minute.
bitch.
Wait, what?
Oh, that was good.
I was like a little bit shocked. I didn't know what to say or do for a second. I was like, all right, here comes Neil Waters. What? Tell
Surprise guest.
us, talk to us, Ukes. Tell us the story.
Well, I want to ask you some questions. And I think a question that I've received is, what are my thoughts about there still being like a small population of Tasmanian tigers remaining in the remoteness of the Tasmanian wilderness?
Mhm.
And I think you have to think about this type of issue. And obviously, being a wildlife biologist, you've got to think about this in layers.
Yeah.
But where my mind goes is straight to, why don't we look at why this animal became extinct based on its behavior? And it was predominantly because this animal didn't have a fear of humans. It was an opportunist. It was a scavenger. It had a large home range. And essentially, even today, if it was around, I can almost guarantee you it would almost be very similar to like a raccoon or a fox, where it's going to be popping up at campsites. It's going to be popping up at rubbish bins. It's going to be popping up in areas where it's going to have a very efficient way of being able to hunt food. So on people's farms and properties and all that kind of stuff. And so when you think about it within the context of behavior and ask yourself the question of, right, do I believe there are Tasmanian tigers still roaming around out there in the wilderness? I think the pretty fast answer to that is no. I don't believe there is. I don't believe there's enough wilderness out there. And it's one of those, another layering effect that people often use is, well, it's the remoteness, and the Tasmanian forest, and it is incredibly dense, and there's such a thick matrix, and there could be a small pocket population that could be existing out there. But I just feel with the amount of paths and roads and the amount of game cameras and the amount of individuals which are out there on motorbikes, and not just that, the amount of roadkill which is out through
Yeah.
Tasmania. I'm not sure if you've been to Tasmania, but the amount of roadkill which is there,
Crazy.
one would have popped up, one would have been hit by a car. We're talking about an animal that I believe was quite aloof to the interaction of humans. I don't believe that they probably had a good flight distance, the same as like a dingo, but I don't believe they were such a nervous animal, because then that wouldn't make sense as to why they were shot to extinction. They're obviously a very easy animal to get a target on. So I personally believe that they're not there. That they're
No,
gone.
I agree with you, by the way, and I've said that before, and I actually have a whole video on this coming out pretty soon. But I believe that they have been expatriated from Tasmania. Now, I'll tell you this: I think that they were around in Tasmania much later than they were declared gone, and they were
Yep.
functionally extinct and slowly weeded down, long after Benjamin died in the Hobart Zoo. I don't think mainland Australia had any. I know sightings still pop up. These are just my opinions, by the way, based on my searches, interviews, chats with people, blah, 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 blah. But I do believe, and I've said this many times before, that if there is still a population, that it would be a very small and fragmented subspecies, but a population nonetheless of thylacine in Western Papua or possibly Papua New Guinea, where dingoes have not been able to penetrate. Because outside of expatriation from human beings and being targeted, by bounty placed hunting, these
Yeah.
animals were primarily outcompeted by dingoes. There's really no other reason that they went away from Australia and New Guinea. So as long as you find an area that those animals would have been in, evolutionarily speaking, they would have been naturalized to those areas without being outcompeted by dingoes being introduced 4,000 years ago. That's where they would still be. And I think I know where some of those areas could be in Western Papua and Papua New Guinea. So I agree with you. I don't think they're in Tasmania. I went, I looked. I don't think they're there.
And
Well, I
believe
guess-
me, Andrew, we've tried to get multiple different times. We've tried to get someone to fund the expedition to this one particular part of Western Papua, which, still has, upwards of 50 uncontacted tribes.
Yeah.
There was one botanical survey that went there 20 years ago and
Right.
didn't go very well.
Right.
But we've tried to get someone to fund it. It's not a cheap expedition
No.
and a brutal one, but my fantasy scenario would be the two of you and Bradley Trevor Grieve all together.
Oh, God, it'd be great.
Go in, bungee jump out of helicopters.
Yeah.
You're in the bush.
spend 3 months, find the thing.
Yeah.
And
I
there are
like
all these stories, Andrew. You know, I can go. I don't want to get started because I'll go on for hours. But there are all these stories of moon tigers and this and that of these local indigenous people, people that come out of the forest that have lived there, you know, several generations and have firsthand reports of seeing them. Just like you said, like a raccoon or a skunk
Yeah.
outside of camp, digging through the trash, whatever. And this is someone who walked from his village and ended up in another village and ended up in another village and now lives in Port Moresby. But when he was 18 years old, he used to feed the thylacine outside of his village. And these are always in villages that don't have dogs, by the way. They don't have
sure.
dogs, they don't have dingoes. So there's
Hmm.
nothing to outcompete them.
Because it was Nick, a ranger by the name of Nick Mooney.
Yeah.
Wasn't he? He was the
Yep.
individual that last spotted that one in Tasmania. And
Two.
have you met him before?
Yeah. We
Yeah.
did a show with him. Yeah, Nick's an
Okay.
incredible guy.
And
Amazing.
I
Biologist.
100% believe he saw what he saw. There's no tourism plug for Tasmania embedded into that or
Nope.
whatever it is. I genuinely believe that this individual saw one out there, what may have been the last one at that time.
Yeah.
But do you believe, you know, because obviously I watch a lot of what's been happening in terms of the research of the potential of a reintroduction. What are your thoughts on that?
It's coming. It's coming in the next 10 years. I think that, you know, Colossal is working with Aussie Ark. They're working with the Dunnart, the closest living relative. We used to think it was the Quoll, but now we know it's the Dunnart. Not Quoll. What do we think it was before? Maybe it was the Quoll. Anyway, they're now working with Dunnart DNA. The Numbat. That's right. Thanks, Edwin. We thought it was the Numbat, but now we know it's not. And they're working with the Dunnart, and they are building the genome from existing specimens of the thylacine so that they can through artificial wombs and through Dunnarts make a thylacine, and Aussie Ark is going to manage the reintroduction. What do I think of it? I mean, you said it yourself. You've been to Tasmania. How much roadkill is on those roads? How much facial tumor disease is wiping out the devils? How much mange is taking over the wallabies and the wombats there? I mean, it's unbelievable. Kyle, just people should see this. Pull up a picture of the mange on the wombats in Tasmania. It's crazy, and this is because there is no predator to regulate these mid-sized animals. That is the reason that these populations have exploded and these diseases have become rampant. That
Wow.
animal that you're looking at right there would not be alive if there was a thylacine in the environment, because a thylacine would see that weak link and pick it off and eat it, right? That's what
Mhm.
predators do. They see the weak and the injured and they get rid of them. So diseases like what you're seeing with that mange wouldn't spread so rampantly. So what do I think? I think it's fucking fantastic, man. I can't wait for them to do it. Now, does that mean we go and make a bunch of thylacines in a lab and just dump them in Tasmania and be like, good luck? Of course not, right? It's slow, it's controlled. Yeah, it's slow, it's controlled. You do it in a test area, a small site. You add certain types of prey. You monitor how that interaction works. You make sure they're viable, their reproduction is viable, and they're not genetically bottlenecked, and that they're not, you know, the offspring aren't all deformed and mutated. And you know, it's like it's a very slow process. It's not like, oh, thylacine are back, there they go. You know, it's like a very slow, like, okay, we made one, now we made two, now they're in an acre, now they're in 5 acres, now they're in 50 acres. You know, it's like a big control group, and you got to test everything. And then you slowly begin to reintroduce them into the right areas that are all managed. Like, this is not an overnight thing. But what do I think? I think it's the best fucking thing in the world. Like, I couldn't be more excited. What I know right now in my core belief system is one way or another in my lifetime, I will get to see a thylacine. I've seen them in museums. I've held dead specimens. But in my lifetime, whether I find one in Western Papua and Pat and I figure out how to get this fucking $5 million project funded, or I'm standing next to the guys at Colossal the day one is born, I will get to see a thylacine in my lifetime. And just that's on a selfish level. But outside of that, on a biological level, they are going to effectively repair the ecosystem that is so terribly damaged in Tasmania. I'm thrilled about it.
Yep. Ucles, what we got to wrap up here, but what's next for you, man? What's the next big adventure?
I'm talking with a producer at the moment from Australia, and essentially we want to do a series up here in the Northern Territory. So there's a lot of social dismay going on at the moment with the booming crocodile population. As you know, Australia, essentially we went from a population of 3,000 crocodiles back in the 1970s now to well over 150,000 crocodiles. And there's been
Wow.
question that they're somewhat succeeding their carrying capacity. And they've tried to do a number of things to curveball the population in terms of, crocodile farming as a commodity and all that kind of stuff. But now, of recent, the Australian government has actually been questioning whether they introduced a cull. And so, obviously, on one end with the ecologists and the conservationists, there's huge concern as to what kind of like trophic cascade effect that this might have on the environment.
Right.
So, and anyway, there's so much which is entailed into this, socially, culturally, particularly with the relationship the Indigenous people have to the animal. And in one article I just read, which I thought was interesting, a lot of big fashion brands and labels are actually getting away from the use of animal products like crocodiles, for example. And it's probably because something along the lines of, the husbandry practices of what the actual farming setups look like with these animals. And so obviously on an animal welfare kind of thing, they've tried to go away from that and step more into like the use of biotechnology and different fabrics and all that kind of stuff. So there was actually one farm in the Northern Territory. No, I'm not sure if it was Northern Territory in Queensland that started using crocodiles as blood and bone for fertilizer. Now, I'm not sure how a lot of people would feel that one of the most iconic Australian animals is being used as fertilizer. So anyway,
there's a lot of other uses for crocodiles too. I mean, skins and leathers and meat and, I think fertilizer is kind of a low priority, I would think.
100%.
Yeah.
Definitely. So there's a number of hot topics which are happening in the Northern Territory at the moment, and essentially we're going to be focusing on a couple of these hot topics, and obviously crocodiles is one, and the other is to do with, and this is obviously a little bit about what we discussed about the concern of what would be the next COVID, and the number of amplifier or reservoir animals that we have in the Northern Territory that can harbour some of the most dangerous diseases known to man: tuberculosis, brucellosis, Japanese encephalitis. What is going to be the next zoonotic disease, which is either going to hit into the primary production industry and or is going to be a direct threat to public safety.
Damn.
We're a stone throw from Southeast Asia, quite
Mhm.
literally, and we've got a very strict biosecurity here in Australia because we have to.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of concern, particularly with what's coming in from Southeast Asia. We've got some rampant diseases which are right on our shoreline. So there's a bit of an idea and a bit of a concept based around that as well. And
Nice.
I think it'll be really interesting. And I think also to a pivotal point in my career where I'm doing things which are a bit more social, political, a bit more investigative journalism and all that kind of stuff, and a little bit different from the crazy Ucles, the psychopath. So it's now about using my experience, my knowledge, my skill set, and now being able to ask the hard questions to get the answers to.
And that,
Awesome.
sorry, Andrew, and that experience, that knowledge, and that skill set is materialized in another way too, because you're doing Ucles Wild Tours now, right?
Yeah. So
Tell
Australian
us a
Wild
little
Tours
bit
in the
about
Northern Territory. And look, that's essentially about teaching people a skill set and an ability to survive in the Australian outback. And so I take very exclusive small groups of individuals into the bush. We do it for 3 days or even do like overnight tours. And essentially I teach them how to survive. That's just it. And so I've got a bit of a program, and it's all been incorporated in a very conservation way. So, for example, the feral pigs that I catch, not only am I teaching people how to catch them, how to be utilising the meat content of that, I'm also giving tissue samples to the veterinary laboratories in Darwin because they're testing for different diseases. With the sharks that we're catching on the program, we're doing shark tagging. With the species of snakes that I'm finding out there in the bush as well, we're putting that information to the NT Fauna Atlas so people are able to identify what species of snakes are in certain areas. So what we've tried to do is we've tried to create a tour which has like a bit of a research focus, but at the same time, it's fun, it's adventurous, it gets people out there, and it's something which is different. And something like this hasn't been offered in Australia. And I'm gonna go pretty gung ho with it. So
Good
Very
for you,
Nice,
man.
dude.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Well, congrats on the evolution of your career to now
Yeah.
you're an investigative journalist with a sprinkle of survival and
That's
wildlife.
it. Yeah, there you go.
Dude, great to see you. Thank you so much for hanging out with us
Yes,
for an hour.
man. Thank you. I've learned quite a bit, more than I ever learned with these two.
This is true.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's always great seeing you guys. And I hope next time I can see you guys in person when I'm back out.
Yeah,
So.
let us know when you're
Absolutely.
cruising back through the States again on your way back. So enjoy your time in Central America, Andrew. Thank you so much for joining us. And everybody go check out Andrew's social media and the Wild Tours. Get yourself a nice tour of the Outback with Andrew Ucles. Yeah,
Barefoot.
let's go.
You must
All
be
right.
barefoot.
All right.
And
Good
while-
night, everybody.
Wait, see, yeah,
Peter,
hold
do
on.
the thing.
Yeah, and while
Oh yeah, that thing. Sorry.
God damn it,
Sorry, Peter. Edit. Clear your throat.
What
Get rid of
in
your
the
hiccups.
world?
I'm really sorry. This is very unprofessional.
Yeah, you're a mess.
And while you're at it, go to the wildtimes.club/info to find all of the links to all the stuff that we have to offer. And what do we offer? We offer 4 additional bonus pods every single month. That's 6 total podcasts a month, ad-free. If you want to sign up on the Spotify, have at it. It's wonderful. Do it. wildtimes.club/info. And don't forget to check out Andrew Ucles, all of his socials. Good night.
Good night,
Night.
everybody. No problems here.
God damn it! I gotta start remembering.
MPH.
So frustrating.